Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and welcome to episode 50. I frankly can't believe we're at episode 50 already, but time flies when you're in quarantine, I suppose. The only way I know how much time it's been is this beard, basically. Today, I want to do something a little bit different than normal. Day9 did a really famous video that's always been inspirational to me about his history playing games, and today, I want to tell you a bit about how I got to get a job at Wizards. I grew up in Washington State, my mom, my dad, my sister, and my brother. And me and my brother were super close when it came to games. We played games all the time, video games and board games growing up, and we even got into card games really early. And so when I was just 10 years old in January of 2001, me and my brother were at a Wizards of the Coast game store playing in a card game tournament. Now, back in the day, there actually were Wizards of the Coast game stores. They don't exist anymore, but you could walk in and they would have all the newest Wizards of the Coast games, even computers to play on, that kind of thing. And after the tournament, the woman behind the counter took my mom aside and said, "Hey, your kids really like card games. You should give this Magic thing a try." To which she replied, interesting, Magic. Gavin, do you think you would like this? And little did I know, this question would be one of the most important questions I'd be asked in my entire life. If I said no then, I sincerely do not know where I would be today. But I said yes, so here I am. So we picked up a starter set and a couple packs of Invasion. I went home, busted it open, put the CD-ROM into the computer from the starter set that was going to teach me how to play, and watch the video. Then I took the decks, ran into the other room, and told my brother, we have to play right now. And very quickly, Magic became all-consuming. I remember my first ever rare from a booster pack, Thornscape Master. A 4-mana 2/2, get that out of here. I also remember doing a bunch of trades. Me and my brother had separate collections and never the twain shall meet. So we were always trying to figure out trades to make sure we could get cards from each other. And my first trade was Tinder Farm for Irrigation Ditch. Gotta fix that mana. We had been playing for a few months, and that's when we learned that not too far away from us was, lo and behold, a game store. Bigfoot's Games, and that was my first ever game store. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was in the town that I grew up in. And so I went there for a booster draft. I had no idea what a booster draft was. They tried to explain it to me. I drafted what I'm sure was a horrible deck. I remember having a bunch of mana silixes in my deck, which is not the hotness, but I had a blast, and Friday Night Magic became a staple of me and my brother's repertoire for years. Fun fact about Bigfoot's, this is where I first met Kenji Igashira, or you might know him as Numathanami, popular Magic streamer. That's right, we both played Magic in the small little town at this tiny game store, and between Bigfoot's and A World of Collections, a great store which is still around, we played plenty of Magic together. I remember my first pre-release. It was Apocalypse. Now back then, they weren't in stores like they are today. There would be one pre-release for the whole metro area. And so there was one big pre-release for Seattle, and you walked into a convention hall, and there would be hundreds of people playing the set all around you. And I went, it was me, my brother, and my mom. This little card game that we played at our game shop was huge. So we went and we played and we had a blast and picked up some art from Arcade Post. I got a Lightning Angel print and my card signed that I opened at the pre-release, which I still have both of. So one benefit of living in Washington is that, of course, Wizards employees were all around us. So the big moment for me came at the Odyssey pre-release. I went there and spell slinging was Randy Bueller, the VP of R&D at the time. And I went up to him, I was 11 years old, and I said, "Hey, I want to come work at Wizards, come hire me, I'm ready, let's do this thing." And he looked at me really seriously and he said, "All right, kid, you're gonna need two things. The first thing you're gonna need is a college degree." And my heart just sunk. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 11. When am I gonna get one of those? It's gonna take forever. But the second thing he said is, hey, another thing that you should try and do is become like a really known person in the community or a pro Magic player, because often we reach out to people we want to bring into R&D. And I thought, I don't know about this whole college degree thing, but how hard could being a pro Magic player possibly be, right? And so from that moment forward, I dedicated myself to going pro at Magic. So I went home and with renewed vigor, started researching all kind of competitive play. And that's how I found the entire Magic community online. And it was through a number of forums over many years, places like MTG Salvation, that I helped not only get to know the community, but hone my card design skills. And eventually I even helped run the website. By 14, 15 years old, I was already running one of the biggest Magic websites in the world. Now, if I was going to go pro, I needed to find people to play test with, but there were two problems. The first problem is that I just didn't know that many people. Yeah, I mean, I knew people online, but I didn't know that many people who were really good in my local area. The second problem was that I was living half the year in Seattle and half the year in Phoenix. So when I would drive between the two states, my entire playgroup would get lost. And it was great because I got to make a lot of friends in both places, but I could not keep anything up consistently. And then it struck me like a bolt of lightning. At Pro Tour LA in 2005, featuring Ravnica, the original Ravnica as the newest set, Antoine Ruel won. And I listened to an interview in a podcast, which was a very new medium back then, and he said that he tested with his team. And his team could be from all around the world. And that got me thinking, I should have a team too. And hey, I'm on the internet, I'm bright, I'm young, I know all these people from running this website, I could create a team. And that's exactly what I did. I created a team and was the leader of kind of this online team movement. The team's name, not the best name in retrospect, was Team Unknown Stars. I still have my polo here. And we had members not only all around the country, but world. And although the name is very pretentious and I would do it differently again for sure, it's kind of the thing you think is cool when you're 15, I have to admit, it was kind of a called shot. You have a number of people who did turn out to be stars coming off of that team. From me, to Ari Lax, to Mate Zadelkai, to Kyle Bogamus, to Melissa DeTora. There were a lot of people on that team that ended up being really big deals. Meanwhile, I started college early. I started college at 15 and a half because, hey, Randy said I needed a college degree to get into Wizards, so let's do this thing. Now, mostly what I was playing at the time was in the Junior Super Series. This was a scholarship series that you could play in to win scholarship money, and it was working out great. But I played in the occasional Grand Prix or PTQ just to make sure my skills could stay up to snuff. And there was one particular PTQ in Phoenix for Pro Tour Yokohama. Now, I brought this aggro Floam deck. It was this deck back in a format called Extended that used Seismic Assault and Life from the Loam, along with a number of other card advantage generating cards and some mana acceleration, with a key card, Destructive Flow. You laid that thing down on turn 2 off Birds of Paradise, and a lot of games would just be over. And I played in this PTQ, and everything was breaking my way. I went all in on a devastating Dreams against a player's deck full of counterspells, and he just didn't have a counterspell. I played against Rashad Miller, who was playing a Mind's Desire Heartbeat of Spring deck, and he cast Mind's Desire for 8 into another Mind's Desire, and then hit almost all lands and whiffed on his combo. So I make it into the top 8. I win the first round of the top 8. My second round opponent in the top 8, believe it or not, is disqualified. So I get into the finals. Now at this point, I can't go to the Pro Tour. I have no intention of going to the Pro Tour because if I do, I can no longer play in the Junior Super Series tournaments. And those tournaments were a great source of scholarship money for me, and I wanted to retain them. So I sat down against my opponent in the finals and offered a prize split. Now this is totally a legitimate thing to do in the finals of a tournament only. You can offer a prize split where one player drops and gets all the prizes and the other player takes the one thing that they want, in this case, the qualification for the Pro Tour. I wasn't going to go to the Pro Tour, so I figured it should go to someone who wanted it. So I sit down and I'm prepared to say this, and before I can say anything, he offers me a prize split. It turns out neither of us wanted to go to the Pro Tour. And so we're in the finals of this PTQ, and we're surrounded by 6 other people who we had just beaten, who are just tugging at their hair like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the finals is 2 people who aren't gonna go. So we end up playing the matchup out, and it's a horrible matchup for me. I'm playing a deck all around Life from the Loam, and he's playing a deck all around this brand new card Counterbalance, which no one's really playing yet. And he's comboed it with Sensei's Divining Top. That's kind of weird. Anyway, we play the match, and somehow, against all odds, he mulligans into Oblivion both games, and I win. And then was this huge quandary. Am I gonna go to the Pro Tour? Am I not gonna go to the Pro Tour? What am I gonna do? I mean, I'd wanted to go to Japan pretty much my entire life. I was a huge anime fan growing up. I love Japanese culture, still do. And this was big for me. I'd never been before. But I knew that the responsible thing to do would be to stay home and keep playing in the Junior Super Series, because once I played in this event, I could no longer play in the junior events. And so it was a really hard decision. And so I talked with friends and family to try and figure out what to do. And ultimately I decided I would make the responsible choice and stay and play in the Junior Super Series tournament. So I forgoed my trip to Yokohama and my first ever Pro Tour qualification, which was heartbreaking to do. And especially heartbreaking because, as it turns out, right after the Pro Tour happened, they announced they were discontinuing the Junior Super Series. Whoops. But nevertheless, I had my first ever PTQ win, and I knew that I could do it. And so the next year with Lorwyn, I did it again, on the back of Fairy. Spellstutter, Sprite, and me have gotten mini Pro Tour qualifications, and I ended up going to my very first Pro Tour. And from there, a number of things happened, including getting picked up to write for Star City Games, which really helped launch me into the public eye. And things were going well. I was playing in Pro Tours, I was writing about Magic, everything was smooth, and I was 20 years old, and I graduated college, and I was like, okay, well, I have this degree that I was told I need to have. I have this pro Magic experience. Now I gotta get this job at Wizards. How am I gonna do it? Now back then, the way that constructed formats looked was you had Standard, which works the way it does now, Legacy and Vintage, which works the way it does now, but then in the middle you had this format called Extended. Extended was a format full of old cards and it rotated forward. So it had a larger card pool, but the cards were always rotating in and out. And Extended was not very popular. And don't get me wrong, I actually loved playing Extended. It was a lot of fun, but basically nobody played it unless it was the season to play Extended. So I had talked for years with friends about, hey, what if we had a non-rotating format in the middle here? I think that would really solve the problem of people not wanting to play it because they knew they could keep their cards and their decks would always be good. This could be the right thing to do. Let me put this into action. And maybe, just maybe, this might help me get a job at Wizards. So I started working on a format called Overextended. I started building up decks and playing them against myself and crafting the format, creating my own ban list and everything. Now, meanwhile, what I didn't know is that inside of Wizards, they were working on an early version of what would be Modern. And so at the same time, we were both working on something very, very similar. And as it turns out, we announced the formats at essentially exactly the same time. They were testing theirs out for the Community Cup, this kind of for fun tournament as a test of it. And I had a big push with my Star City Games column and on social media to come check this new format out. Now the cutoff points were a little different. Wizards chose Mirrodin forward to align with the card frame. I chose Invasion forward because that felt kind of when modern Magic began to me. But the ideas were pretty similar. And before I knew it, Wizards announced they were going to adopt Modern for the upcoming Pro Tour Philadelphia, and it would be the first ever Modern tournament. And a lot of people ask me, Gavin, were you sad that they chose their format over yours? No. I was ecstatic. Are you kidding me? To me, we were both working toward the same goal, the goal of creating this non-rotating format. And as it turns out, it's turned out to be pretty popular. It wasn't long after that until I was contacted by Dave Humphreys to see if I would be interested in a job interview there. I got the VaporOps test, this kind of design test, and you had 48 hours to return it back. I spent basically every ounce of moment I had that weekend, if I wasn't sleeping, writing this thing. And I turned in this massive 20,000 word essay on all the cards that they sent me, along with decks to play and everything. And I was hired. I was hired on to, believe it or not, the development team. Now it would be the play design team. And I started in my career at Wizards. So what happened after that at Wizards? Well, that's a story for perhaps another episode. Maybe I'll talk about it on episode 100. I would love it if you could tell me what you thought of this episode. I have a lot of stories to tell, but no idea if you are interested in hearing them. Would you want to hear pro player stories? Would you want to hear stories from me designing really early on? Or just stories from Gavin's childhood? They're all there, so let me know in the comments below if you're interested in me doing more videos like this. I'll talk with you again on Friday, and in the meantime, may you be your own unknown star. You got this.